So, Ashish, my name is Karthik. I am an alumnus of IIT Madras and Stanford University. I have a PhD. I've been interested in education and I've been helping a lot of people with their MBA applications over the last 6 years. So, August Academy was something that we started in 2013. And since then, we've probably assisted close to 150 students at the very minimum over the past 6 years. And we've had a lot of people getting into the US top 20. Within Europe, we have had people getting into INSEAD and London Business School, but we are for the first time looking at the possibility of someone getting into IMD, and it is in that context that I'm interacting with you. So what we could do today is we could trace your journey before MBA, through your MBA, and after your MBA. I would like to take about 10 minutes to focus on the one particular day that was very important in your life, which is the IMD assessment day. But then any wisdom you can share about the pre-MBA days, the during the MBA days, and the job search towards the end of the MBA. All of that would be useful to us as well. This is a video that we are going to make available to a lot of students open source. So maybe it would be best if we can start with your introduction. So sure. Can you take a short 2 to 3 minute introduction? Maybe you can start from like what you did for college, everything.
Definitely. So I actually did my engineering from IIT Varanasi in electrical engineering. After that, I joined Deloitte Consulting in India, in Mumbai. I spent close to 4 years. So working in technology consulting actually gave me a good understanding of how the entire consulting world works and what are the key skills you need to succeed in consulting. But after 4 years, I wanted a bigger challenge. So I actually was in touch with one of my Deloitte alumni who were doing a startup in Chennai. So I moved to Chennai. The startup was actually a Canadian firm which was starting its India operations. I was the 12th employee in that one. When I left InfoTrellis in 2017, we had a team of 250 people across 3 geographies. Now, after spending close to 10 years in technology consulting in India, US, Canada, and Europe, I was sure that I actually am lacking something in me, which was stopping me from becoming a leader in the industry. And this search for identifying what was I missing and what I needed to do to succeed led me to the decision that I wanted to do an MBA. Now, going for an international MBA is actually a big decision for most of the Indians because A, you have to step out of your comfort zone. B, you have to go into a different geography. US still works because you actually are going into an English-speaking country. Europe is a little bit different because, so the problem with Europe is because it's a very, very geographically and linguistically diverse region. So I had been there earlier and I was sure that I wanted to do an international MBA only after I realized that I'm at a stage in my life where an Indian MBA would not be able to give me the experience I was looking for. I had scored 99.69 percentile in CAT in, I think, 2010, but I was not really sure whether going to an IIM would provide me the opportunity I was looking for, which was an international exposure and as well as understanding how leadership works. This path of leadership, which many schools claim to teach, was one of the reasons why I actually went to IMD. IMD's MBA, from when I started interacting with my seniors in IMD as well as in the industry, was this message actually stood out for me that IMD's MBA is not exactly an MBA. It's a leadership program which is branded as an MBA.
Can you repeat that, please?
IMD's MBA can be considered as a leadership program which is branded as an MBA. Okay. Because the intake of IMD is very different from most of the other business schools. They only select 90 individuals, and one key aspect which they look for is obviously the impact you can create. And this impact tends to grow as you increase in your leadership journey. So the people who are already in a leadership position or have the potential to become leaders, that is what IMD looks for. And as a result of which, I decided that of all the schools, I would look into joining IMD for sure. I had, I'll probably take another minute just to explain how IMD actually came into picture, because I had a GMAT score of 770.
Wow.
Right. So after that, I had a lot of options, especially with the USB schools, which are very, very GMAT focused. Now, IMD is not that GMAT focused. Yes, it does play a picture in your overall assessment, but I think they look at more at your personality and how you interact with people than the GMAT score. And probably that was one reason why I was so excited to join IMD, because I met people before from other schools, and the moment I stated my GMAT score, they were impressed with it. But the dean of IMD's MBA said, "So what? This is just a number." So that was actually one thing which actually landed me back on ground and made me realize that having analytical skills is good to have, but it's not everything you might need to succeed as a leader. Uh, Post MBA, I actually am joining one of the leadership programs for Danaher Group.
Which, sorry?
It's Danaher Group.
Can you spell it?
It's DANAHER.
DANAHER. Is it like, I mean, obviously it's European, but which country
It's an American company. So it's an American firm. They have almost $20 billion of revenue. They work mostly in life sciences, in nutrition, and other related industries.
And where would your job be positioned?
So the first job I'm actually taking is in Belgium. Now, why I decided to again move from technology consulting into an industrial group, whereas most of people these days want to move into technology consulting or anything which has got digital transformation enabled roles in them, is because I have spent 10 years in them in technology consulting. I know what is the impact technology can create on the businesses, but as a leader, there are so many other functions which you should need to be aware of. As a result of which, selecting this general management program was very critical, because I wanted to experience by getting my hands dirty, not only in consulting, but go inside an organization and make a difference. Sometimes moving into consulting allows you to so it allows you to heli drop into one of the key problem areas in a company, go and fix it, and get out before you are able to see the impact of before you can see the impact. When you're working in the company, you can be the change agent and bring far larger impact. So scope of impact, the geographical mobility this role was providing me, and overall growth within Danaher Group were three reasons why I actually selected going into general management program.
Okay. That's actually very informative for a lot of our students. It actually, a lot of students, when they reach out to me, they just say, "Hey, I want to get into management consulting." Why do you want to get into management consulting? I don't know. That's the general attitude that people have. So what you have suggested here gives people a more clearer framework with which to plan their career path. So that's something that would be useful. I want to take you back to 2017. You have a very impressive GMAT score. Congratulations on that. I had a 770 on the GMAT as well, so I can kind of empathize how much work would have gone in. But after the GMAT was over, that is when the real work started, right? With regards to identifying which schools, or was it roughly equally difficult, the GMAT journey and identifying the schools and applying to the schools?
Again, I think GMAT is just a milestone which you need to get through for your MBA, right? For me, I think GMAT was an exam which allowed me to be far more creative than just counting numbers. So my strategy was very clear. Okay, I knew that this is an exam which actually tests. I mean, for me, GMAT was like playing a game of chess. If you have the right strategy, you definitely succeed. So I spent close to 2 months on preparing for it. This was
Okay.
an attempt. In my first attempt, I scored a 710.
Okay.
But again, I took it like in 2008.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So right after my graduation, I took a GMAT because I was targeting an Indian school ISB at that point. But then things never worked out, so I decided to actually wait for a while and progress in my career. When I took the exam, I spent 2 months, out of which I spent 1 week only on devising the strategy. I was very clear what I wanted to do in reading comprehension, what I wanted to do with maths, and what I wanted to do especially with the AWS section. This was a new section, and people actually tend to ignore it. But I think if you are focusing on this, what you're going to do in MBA is kind of extension of it. I mean, so AWS is the basic of what you actually do through cases in MBA, right? And as a result of which, I was very focused on how much time I wanted to spend on each of these topics. As far as maths is concerned, I think GMAT maths is not that difficult. If you are having a right strategy and keep pacing yourself. I think the biggest problem when I was talking to the other uh, people who were with me in IMD and beyond as well, one problem which they keep facing is they actually tend to get stuck in the questions, right? And having the right strategy will not only help you during the GMAT, but also once you reach any of the MBA programs, you would need to quickly identify which are the core areas you want to work on, what are the pain points in each of the subject areas which you need to quickly resolve, and always strategizing, always thinking of any challenge as a game of chess would help you succeed. So for me, spending a time bound strategy plan for each of these, whether it was GMAT or for MBA entrance, was helpful. Yes, I think the biggest challenge, more even bigger challenge than MBA entrance, which is GMAT, was writing the essays. Because I mean, maybe it's not. It's true for me, but or maybe it's true for a wider public in general as well. Writing an MBA essay is not about just putting some words on paper. I think you need to reflect. You need to reflect on your choices. You need to reflect on your career path. You need to identify what motivates you. And these are the key things which should go in writing your application essay.
Can I ask you which colleges you applied to at the time?
All right. So I actually had so again my career choices have been quite weird that way. I gave GMAT just before my marriage, and then I got married in 2016. Spent a lot of time roaming around, and I was in US that time, so I just took like 6 months just going all over the country, and then I realized, okay, the MBA dates are around the corner. I applied to INSEAD and Columbia that in 2016. Got and that too in third round. Got dinged. So even
Okay.
770 could not get me through. In
Did you
2017,
interview with these colleges?
I did it. I did interview with them, but I didn't make the final list.
Okay, that's fine. But getting to the interview stage itself is a big accomplishment for some of the top colleges in the world. So this
Right.
is in Columbia, right?
Yes.
And in
So,
R3.
right in R3. So
Okay.
again, I think I was a little bit overconfident in 2016 because I thought with an international experience, with a GMAT score of 770 and having a very very strong analytical skill set, I should be able to succeed. Didn't happen. I think it was an eye opener that way because it made me more circumspect, not only from application perspective but in life as well, about how I plan things. I took this lesson in 2017. I was very very choosy in which schools I applied to. I applied to LBS and to IMD. INSEAD,
Okay.
I did not select INSEAD that way because I had just been dinged, and it becomes really difficult to show progress in a period of 6 months. As a result of which, there was again IMD at that point was more of a leadership school for me.
Okay.
My previous boss, from who actually is in Chennai, is currently the senior VP of Informatica in India. He actually had done his MBA from INSEAD, and
Okay.
he had suggested me going for IMD at that particular point, because he said, now you're married, you are above 30, so taking this decision would be much better for you rather than chasing any of the USB schools, which generally tend to be around 15, 18 months or 2 years, right? So at that point, I was very sure I would go for IMD. Now I think IMD has streamlined its process. Earlier, I had to write like 3 essays, which was a lot tougher than the current changes they have made to the application process.
Now let's move through the IMD application process. So you finished your essays,
Right.
And then there was the assessment day. Can you tell me something about it? Where did you attend your assessment day?
So I think a lot of things have changed in the IMD's interview process. Back in 2017, they were calling almost all the applicants to Switzerland.
Okay.
They used to do some of the interviews in Singapore as well, because they have a satellite center there. But probably 80 to 90% of the applicants were called in Singapore or in Switzerland.
Okay.
Now getting from US to Switzerland was a hassle. So I was kind of a bit irked that I have to travel 2,000 miles just to go for a day. But the whole day, I would say, is one of the most memorable day in my life.
Okay.
The kind of personalized attention they give you in the assessment day is unmatched.
Okay.
I would split the entire day into two phases. The first phase is where you are interacting with the adcom and the teachers, and then post lunch you spend your lunch with one of the existing students.
Okay.
Now the interaction you are able to get with the with the adcom committee, as well as with the existing students, is mind blowing.
Okay.
So during the assessment day, it's a full day process. Out of 8 hours, the moment you land in at 8 o'clock, you'll be given a name tag. And not only that, I mean, there's a guard who knows that there's somebody who's coming. It's not so the personalization, the deep connect they're able to establish with the applicants is amazing. And then spending an hour in the classrooms, so you're able to audit a class where you actually sit in the back row with the existing 90 students and listen to a lecture from a professor. The quality
so this was the thing you did in the morning, attending the class.
Yes.
Okay. Did all of you attend the same class, or did you have a choice of which class you wanted to attend and you could pick and choose?
No, we did not have that choice to actually pick and choose. It's mostly anyways, the MBA program works that way. You have 7 or 8 hours of daily classes, right? So the moment you actually go in, I think they just shove everybody in the classroom and just allows them to sit in the back and audit the class.
So do you remember which class it was that you attended at that point? And
I do remember the class. It was marketing by Gautam Chagala. So he was actually talking about the strategic choices brands have to make.
Okay.
And hearing him speak, and more than that, the level of discussion in the class was what was very impressive.
Okay.
I think because of the age bracket from which IMD selects, you would find people with more than 7 or 8 years of experience, which kind of brings a gravitas in the applicants.
Okay.
So instead of trying to ask questions just for the sake of asking questions or getting airtime, you would find really relevant questions. And many students were able to bring in their real life stories in the class. I think that was one of the reasons why I was quite enamored by the whole way the IMD was teaching.
That is definitely a very impressive way to start the day. And I can see the attraction that might come to somebody who's been exposed to this, first thing in the day. Sounds good. So what happened after that?
Sure. So after that, IMD actually gives you a case study. So I had prepared for a case study. Then we were actually, there were, I think.
It was given to you beforehand, or was it given to you on?
Given to us a week before.
A week before. Do you remember what your case study was about?
I wouldn't disclose it.
Okay. Okay. Can you give me something very broad? Was it a business case study?
It was a business case study. I think it was to do something with in FMCG sector and some of the strategic choices which a business brand has to make.
Okay. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of the case that you just discussed, but I'm going to try to stay outside of the specifics and try to see if we can deconstruct the process. Would that be acceptable? Okay.
Yeah.
So the case study was given to you about a week before. Let's say this is about an FMCG brand. So I can think of a brand like Kellogg's Cornflakes, for example.
Sure.
I mean, Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Let's not worry about what the brand is. So there was a particular business challenge this brand was facing.
Right.
And so you were asked to probably give your opinions on how to solve this business challenge. Was that the nature of the questioning?
So there were two parts to it. There were 7 people who were actually a part of the assessment group. We had met previous evening because so the day we actually we assigned the assessment day, the adcom tells you, okay, these are the 6 or 7 people who are going to come in along with you. We formed a WhatsApp group. We started exchanging, okay, when is everybody coming in? Where is everybody staying? I stayed at a hotel nearby. It's a beautiful place. I don't think you would find a college which is more beautiful. A, because it's in Switzerland, and B, it's a lake right opposite the college campus. So it's an amazing place. So we met the evening before. So obviously there was a lot of camaraderie already built. And IMD Adcom actually keeps observing these things. So they would observe how you actually interact with every one of them. Now the whole group was very, very diverse. With me, there was a Russian, 2 Brazilians, 2 Chinese, and a Mexican. So it was a very, very diverse international group with very, very different ideas.
During and professionally also you were diverse?
Yes. Very, very diverse.
You with a technology background, what about the backgrounds of the other 6 people?
So the other 6 people actually had experience.
Your memory, right?
Right. So from what I can recall, one of them actually was an accountant. One of them was working in an industry. The third one was a petroleum engineer, and 2 of them were investment bankers.
Okay, that is about as diverse as it gets.
Right.
Actually a very exciting experience. Okay, tell me.
So now during the day, so as soon as we went in, there were 2 parts to it. The first part was we were introduced to each other. Then based on the case which we were given, we were allowed to create 2 teams for and against for a particular action for that brand. The entire group was split into these 2 teams, and we started brainstorming for half an hour and then came up with a proposal. So we were allowed to make slides or on paper. Now there was one member of the AdCom team which was sitting there just observing us from the corner, how we interacted with each other, and they were very clear on what they actually wanted. I'll briefly describe it later, what were some of the qualities they were looking for. And then there was an interaction between the 2 teams where we presented our points for and against a certain action. This was overseen by a faculty member who then based on the merits of our points raised some questions and allowed us to think further. After that, there was a short break, and then we were taken into individual rooms where we were allowed to there was a personal interview where the AdCom team members would ask you questions based on your previous work experience. What are some of the motivation for doing an MBA? What exactly do you want to do in your life? It was very, very casual, and I really enjoyed talking to the AdCom member because she was very, very friendly. And at that point, just to make things interesting, they would bring another AdCom member, and there was basically a simulation where you were given a particular choice. So you're given a role, and then based on that, you have to make a choice, and then explain your choice to a superior. This was I can disclose a little bit more on that. So, for example, let's say, again, this is not exactly the same thing. It's just a hypothetical, similar similar situation. So for example, let's say you are actually going into an office and you are the area manager of that office, and you have to fire somebody, okay, because the person you have to fire is not doing enough knowledge transfer to the juniors, okay, because he could be afraid that he is not getting uh, enough inputs or validation from the company, or B, because he could be threatened that he might lose his position to a newer resource. So how would you actually interact and come up with the decision? So they would do so it was a role play where I had to explain my position to my senior first, and then how would you actually carry out this action by firing somebody on the face?
Okay. Okay. That is a very difficult situation, right? Even in real life, when we face such a situation, it's a difficult situation, something that we have to go through. But I don't think anybody particularly enjoys this. Okay.
Right. I
So
think, and the whole point of this exercise was to see how you are able to face moral dilemmas.
okay. Okay. Fair enough.
If you have the strength of character,
Hmm.
you would be able to make the right choice, and you would have the conviction to explain your choice. This is what they were looking for.
Okay.
After that,
Okay.
after that, once this interview was over and a short break later, we were brought back in a room where we were given another case, which we had to read and then give up a presentation on that. This was a
And
new.
this case handed to you just on the spot, or this was
It was given on the spot.
Okay.
Right. So based on the information from the case, you had to glean off quick points, come up with the strategy for the action, and then you have to make an individual presentation to the entire room, not only to
Okay.
the. So there were no teams at that point. You had to give the
Okay.
presentation to an entire room.
Was everybody given the same case?
Yes.
Okay. How many people were there for assessment day? Just so that I can visualize this.
Normally, you would see assessment day groups of 6 to 7 people. That generally tend to be that.
That's your group, but how many such groups?
I think in general, I cannot comment on that because they do it a lot. And during my year in IMD also, I think there were like 15. I think there are almost 20 to 30 groups which actually come in, because the ratio of the interviews to the final selections is probably around 3 to 1. So if you're normally given an interview, you are probably around like 2.5 is to 1 chance that you would get in.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. So yeah, back to this on the spot case study. So you were telling me about that. So they gave you a case study on the spot. They gave the same thing to everybody who was in the room. The 6 or 7 in your group, or the 100 people who were there for assessment day? Like.
So again, this assessment day, I'm not sure how it actually is working in India, but in Switzerland, they would normally have an assessment day where there would be like 2 teams. There would be like
Okay.
two sets of 6 people each coming in. And then normally do not have
Okay.
assessment.
Okay. So not everybody comes in at the same day.
Yep.
But
I think they have 8 to 10 days like this in Switzerland itself,
that
and
is more manageable. Okay. Got it. Yeah. So on the
because
day you were there, maybe you had about 10 to 15 people at the most.
for me, because again, I think I applied in second or third round.
Okay.
IMD process starts a lot earlier. I was the only assessment batch on that day, so there were only 6 people.
Okay.
Because of the personalized attention that the AdCom team places on each interviewer, it is really difficult to manage a lot of people. So
Understood.
IMD perhaps can be best compared to a Swiss watch. It's a rare commodity, but but they give a lot of attention to details.
Okay. Okay. That makes things a whole lot clearer. So they gave the case study to each one of the 7 members in your team, including yourself.
Yeah.
And you guys worked on it one by one, and then you made a 5-minute presentation on it. Would that be
Probably around 3.5 to 4 minutes presentation.
okay? And everybody did that. Okay. Did you have a discussion after that, or?
Yes. So after that, it was followed by a discussion about the comments each of the team members have made, and then we were asked to actually come to a position by again the faculty members, one of the
So
faculty.
I'm wondering here, when everybody is making an individual presentation on the same topic, and you're competing against each other in some sense, the people who speak later, don't they have an advantage because they have an opportunity to observe all your ideas as well?
So you already handing, I mean, so you are actually given transparencies, right? So you actually come up with your own ideas. You have to sketch them in, and then present it using those slides.
You made transparencies, not PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
wow.
PowerPoint.
Okay, sounds good. So what happened after this impromptu case study?
Right. So after that, we had another discussion with one of the alumni who had come in, and he was from 2015, so I think around 2 or 3 years senior to the people.
Okay.
And he gave an idea about how life was for him during the year, what he was doing after IMD.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, again, that individual was Indian. I don't think that was by choice.
Okay.
I think he was just in the campus or nearby, and he dropped by. So we had a very pleasant conversation, listening to him about his life at IMD, how he actually, came up with the strategy for his job, what job he was doing. Perhaps I can give some information. So he is working for one of the large Swiss multinational FMCG brands.
Okay.
So Nestle, I think I can disclose that. So he was working for Nestle, and he was working in a very cool job because he was working on their, I think, conservation efforts, especially around ecological, which sounded pretty cool. After that, we had a break for coffee and then lunch. During the lunch, we were able to meet the existing students. There were not a lot of students at that time because this was an assessment day in September.
Okay.
But we were paired with one of the students each, who were having similar background profiles to us. So they actually take that effort to quickly match you with one of the guys who have a similar background effort. And using that, you can have a conversation and hear about how their year is going on through and how are they looking for jobs, or what is their experience from consulting projects and where had they traveled. Again, I think one point which IMD scores very heavily and is normally not used in the rankings is that their food is the food they actually give. So they actually have so you actually get like a 3-course meal during the assessment day, and the entire year that was one of the things which I used to look forward to every day, was having the dessert at IMD is something else. I think they should actually take that into consideration in rankings as well, because IMD would probably be the best school then because of the food they serve.
So I visited a few campuses last year in the US, and I'll be traveling again in May this year. Yeah, I mean, they have cafeterias and all that, but I don't think this is part of the plan anywhere. I mean, you go to your Subway, you go to your cafeteria, you go to the coffee shop, you eat whatever you want, but it's restaurant food at the end of the day. So that's a very quirky thing that you bring up.
Right.
I'm going to ask you about the case study just a little bit more.
Sure.
And I might ask you about the IMD experience. Okay. That's all I would have on the assessment day per se. How big is the case study? Is it like 5-6 pages of Microsoft Word document, or?
I would say there are some illustrations and numbers in there for sure.
Okay.
Apart from that, I think the whole case study is not more than 5 pages.
Okay. And this is probably something that's like a Harvard Business School case study or something, right?
Similar to it. Probably a skimmed down version of a Harvard case, because Harvard cases are like normally 30 to 40 pages. This would be around 5 to 6 pages, very simplified version.
Okay.
If you are able to identify issues quickly,
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you had learned during the AWA and RC, you remember your basic, you should be able to do this business case, even if
Okay.
you've not done any business case in the past.
So that was supposed to be my next question, which is, do you need prior business exposure to dissect the case? And you've just clarified for me that that is not necessary. You just need a keen insight. Fair
Right.
enough.
And I think more important than just any insights in the
Okay.
numbers. Hello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
I
can
think
hear you.
more.
Go.
Yeah, I think more than any insights into the numbers or business, what you should definitely show is creativity. So, for example, let's say again, this is from another of the cases. This is not what's tested during the assessment day. Suppose you're actually handling a negotiation between a power plant and the locals uh, in a tribal area. Okay, so can you actually come up with a solution where a certain amount of uh, you know interaction is allowed between the village leaders and the leadership of the company, so that a bond is formed, right? If you can come up with such consideration, so a creativity like that, that
Okay.
would actually get you a lot of brownie points.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Okay. Now, Liz, looking back to the entire assessment day and alluding to one of the points that you had raised earlier, what do you think they were measuring? What do you think they were looking for in terms of experience, interpersonal qualities, and am I missing out anything?
Right. So after your assessment day, once a decision has been made, you actually get a personalized call where you get the feedback. Whether you make it or not, you would get a detailed feedback. So hearing that call, and the adcom member would keep on speaking for 5 minutes, just telling, okay, how did you perform? And at that time, all you wanted to hear is whether you got in or not, right? So that actually quite nerve wracking. And I think they purposefully did so, because I actually spoke to the adcom member. Okay, why did you do this? Because all I wanted to hear was whether I got in or not. And they said, so for them, this was the culmination of a process. So they would be very, very specific in giving you feedback. And based on that feedback and my observations during the year, they are not looking for super smart people who are number crunchers. They're looking for people who can work with other individuals. They're looking for people who have humility. They're looking for people who are good in analytical skills, but can use that analytical skill to make a quick decision, and at the same time assess the impact of the decision. So from the entire process, I think the three things which stood out for me was, you should be morally upright, you should be very strong in your convictions, and you should have the humility to work, to identify that you are not having all the skills in the world. In any organization, in any place, you will need to work with people.
You already said that GMAT is not that much of a criteria, you know, based on the interaction that you had with the dean. So, what does it take to crack IMD, according to you?
Having a fabulous story to tell, and
Okay,
that story. So the people I studied with, I mean, there were 18 Indians in my batch. That was one of the
18 out
high.
of 90 people are Indians.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Again, not only the Indians from India, but people of Indian origin as well.
Okay.
The one thing which stood out was your story, how you have been molded by your experiences, and can you bring out that impact of your experience in your essay? They're
Okay.
looking for somebody who is perceptive of the impact of him or her on other people, as well as the impact others had on him. So the story of how focused you are on success, how you have imbibed your previous feedback and experience into getting on that path. Again, MBA is just going to be that milestone on your career path. Are you able to recognize its importance? And are you able to look beyond an MBA? I think that is what they're looking for. So for an Indian, I would say the most important thing is, try to be more well-rounded than a consultant, than an engineer. I think we Indians tend to define ourselves in these stereotypes of, okay, I'm an engineer, I'm the best engineer that can be. That is not the way to look at life. That is not the way to look at what you want to do after an MBA.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for the great advice. What can you share about the job search experience itself?
Okay, so as an Indian going to Europe, you are going to have some challenges because of the language.
Okay.
Because English is normally the second or the third language is spoken. So if you already have level 2 certificates in, let's say, French or Germany or German, that would work out really great for you. Uh, IMD is normally seen as an industry school. You get a
Okay.
lot of opportunities from management consulting, from technology as well, but at the core, it remains an industry school where a lot of these companies, such as ABB, Danaher Group, Hilti, uh, Honeywell, these kind of companies come in to hire leaders. So it's more of a transition point of experienced people moving from one geography to the other. So you should be very clear on what you want. During the year, I had a focus to move into consulting because I thought that's the easiest way out. But then as the year evolved, I was very clear on why I wanted to move to a leadership position in one of the general management programs. So it wasn't the most pleasant of the job searches because you also have to keep going to the classes. So 8 to 9 hours of classes, and then you have to do your job search, and at the same time you might be getting into consulting in projects at IMD, and you have to do your interviews. So it's just like trying to play a puzzle with all with your calendar, because I remember my calendar used to be all filled up with constant job searches. So for Indians, I think the easiest way to get a job would be to focus on one particular sector and then go for it. Instead of trying to determine during the year what you want to do, it's always better that you know from the beginning. Again, if you want into go into management consulting, INSEAD is definitely a more management consulting school than IMD. Having said
Okay.
that, we have like I think 25% of the class move into management consulting course this year.
How is it from a visa issue? Are you facing a backlash from companies saying they are not able to recruit people of a non-European background?
Um, I would say at IMD, the visa issue is not that much of an uh, issue because they first of all there are only 90 people, so you will normally get around 30 to 40 companies where you would be actually placed, right? Visa does play a part if you're looking at certain geographies. US,
Okay.
yes, it's going to be very, very difficult. If you're looking for roles in Switzerland, Germany, or let's say France, I think it's less of a concern. Visa
Okay.
is not that big a concern because it's not a lottery there.
Okay. So pretty much your L2 certifications in French or German, and that's the only uh, skill that you need to develop. From a visa point of view, it's not going to be that
Visa is
difficult.
not that. I would say visa is not that that a concern as compared to the US, where I already had an H1, but still I moved to a European school because in US it is really difficult to actually get a visa.
Now, most of the graduates, the 90 people who graduate from IMD, they end up working in continental Europe, or do they also go to UK? Do they also go to the US?
So based on the profile of people, many of the students actually tend to go back to their home countries.
Okay.
Especially, and that's especially true for people who actually come from America. So we had, I would say, almost 10%, yeah, around 10% of company of my batch coming from North America, and they moved back to North America.
Okay.
Rest of the folks probably moved to Middle East. So I would say it's almost a 60, 30, 10% split.
Okay. Okay. But uh, if you're willing to put in the hard work, and if you are an Indian student, I'm speaking from the point of view of an Indian student who might not have a European or a US passport. if you're willing to put in the work through the job search, learning the language skills, all of that, and being very focused, then the end outcome should be positive, right? I mean, you can be hopeful about it, correct?
Right, and that's actually true. So what I would advise any of the other Indian students who actually look at IMD is be very clear on who you are, be
Okay.
very focused on where you want to be,
Okay.
and how you want to get there. If you're able to answer these three questions yourself, you should be able to get into IMD.
Okay. Sounds good. Those are all the questions I had for you, actually. Any final words of advice you would like to share, not just to our viewers, but to any juniors in general? And this does not have to be to Indian students, this could be to any MBA aspirant across the world.
I think there are certain things which you are only able to retrospectively reflect on, and that is one thing which we actually miss when we are looking at taking the GMAT or applying for MBA schools. This is just, again, as I've told many times during this interview, this is just going to be one milestone in your life. Okay, don't get overhung on it. There's so many other things which you can do, and MBA does not equate to success. You are all successful in your own individual way. Think of it. Think of an MBA as a stepping stone for something you want to do, but nothing beyond that. So instead of taking a lot of pressure or getting a good grade score, going to a great university, be more reflective upon where you want to be and what you want to be. I think that's, if you're able to answer these questions, everything else will fall into place.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashish.
Thank you.